Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of Tales from the Spinner Rack. Now, you may be asking, what exactly is Tales from the Spinner Rack? Well, I'm here to tell you that Tales from the Spinner Rack is actually a collection of podcasts that have come together to do comic book reviews. And so for this week, I have with me Corbin, who kind of double duties on Absolute Geek and Couch Crunchers from time to time.
Hey, how's it going?
The comic barbarian. And I have down here Jay, a.k.a. Not Lance, from Audio Ammunition. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, friends.
Yes,
You're welcome, friend.
I'm set to be a regular on Tales from the Spinner Rack. So what we do here at Tales from the Spinner Rack is we take all the books that we read weekly and we review them. So tonight we're reviewing. The way the format works is that we are reviewing all the books that we picked up last week tonight, and then telling you what we're looking forward to that's coming out in your comic shops tomorrow, so you can run out and pick up some recommendations. Maybe I don't know. I don't control your life. I don't know what you want to do. Corbin said he's ready to arm wrestle you if you don't want to show up to go get what he suggests.
Bring it. Let's go.
Yeah, see, he's got those.
Gotta get my looks.
He's got those guns ready to go. So that's what Tales from the Spinner Rack is, and that's what we're gonna do here. Some comic book reviews. Sorry, this is the very first episode, so it may be kind of rough. We don't have intro or outro music yet. We're kind of just getting our feet wet here. But here's how it's going to work. We all have books to review. We're going to take turns reviewing them and discussing them a little bit. And then we're going to give our score 1 out of 5. It could be 1 out of 5, whatever you want. If you want it to be 1 out of 5 hairy Wookiees, then you can give 1 out of 5 hairy Wookiees. I don't really care, but it's whatever system you want to give it. 1 out of 5. All right, so why don't we go ahead and kick us off. We're going to have Jay kick us off, or not Lance, kick us off with our first book on our very first issue of Tales from the Spinner Rack.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. I'm really excited. It just seems like nowadays it's hard to find people that A, read comics, and B, read new comics. There's not a lot of Wednesday Warriors out there. So it's awesome that we managed to get together and do something. So the first book I wanted to talk about, Matt was saying, that came out last week, was Punisher Soviet from Marvel Comics, and it's written by Garth Ennis and art by Jason Burrows. So I started thinking about this, and I like the Punisher quite a bit, but a little Punisher for me goes a long way. I kind of like that they do these small mini series as opposed to like the ongoing stuff. I like having, I don't know, it just seems like the authors can kind of do a beginning, middle, and end, and kind of wrap it up in a nice, tight bow. And so far, and plus you can't go wrong with Garth Ennis Punisher. So Punisher Soviet it starts out pretty low key. It's basically just Punisher going around, kind of like chasing like an organized crime group. I know, weird, huh? That never happens. So he goes around, but it appears that there's somebody that's kind of like copying his style. So every time he goes to hit a location, somebody was already there, and they're really, really good at what they do, almost as good as him. The way that they control their the gunfire and the way they're in and out really quick. They take down a ton of them. And so he's kind of going from location to location, and somebody's already beating him to what he's already doing. So that's kind of like the whole premise of the book, of the first issue anyway. It just kind of sets it up. And like I said, real low key, but it's very engaging. The art's awesome. It's under what I assume is kind of like DC Black Label, but only Marvel calls it Max Comics. So there's a lot of like F-bombs. There's a lot of like exploding skulls everywhere. But it's really good. And that's what Punisher needs, in my opinion. It needs this. It needs an R-rated story. But anyway, so for me, Punisher Soviet #1 gets now I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 stars. And the only reason I don't give it 5 is just because not a lot happens. It's just kind of setting everything up. So there's not a lot of meat in this issue, in the story so far, but obviously that's probably going to change. So
what drew you to this story? What do you think about it would draw other people to want to pick it up?
Well, like I said, first of all, it's Garth Ennis writing Punisher, and he's, arguably probably the guy that writes Punisher the best.
Yeah,
that's what drew me in #1, because I was, I looked at it, I'm like, Punisher Soviet, I don't even know what that is. But as soon as I saw that name in there, I'm like, nope, I'm sold. And the fact that it is said to be like a more extreme story, as far as like violence and language and stuff, and I'm always down for that. It's always a nice change.
Don't sound too excited about the book.
What do you mean?
4 out of 5.
Do I sound overly excited?
You don't sound very excited about it.
Oh, really? No, it's good, man. It's
It's like it's
got
violence and swear words, and that's cool.
Well, that was gonna be a question I asked you. What popped the most for you? Was it the storytelling? Was it the artwork? Because I know obviously you're talking about just Garth Ennis' Punisher is like, that's the definitive kind of Punisher in my mind. I'm sure many other readers' minds. But is it the writing that popped out, that stood out to you? Is it the artwork that hooked you? What feature of the book was something that you like carried away with, even though, as you said, the story didn't have a lot going on?
Well, honestly, the artwork did stand out for me. I love the way Jason Burrows, and even the colors, they're very rich, and the way he draws Punisher looks, he's so dark and menacing. That's awesome.
I like that, for sure.
Yes, check it out.
So you give it 4 out of 5?
Yes, sir.
All right. Interesting. Well, I want to talk real quick. Just came out this week. We're in the year of the X-Men right now. We just got hot off the heels of Hickman's groundbreaking House and Powers of 10 or House and Powers of X or whatever you want to call it. We have officially hit the end of the first wave of new X-Men books last week with the release of Fallen Angels. But I don't want to touch on Fallen Angels just yet. I want to touch on X-Men issue #2. So I know Jay, you're reading X-Men. Corbin, are you reading it too?
Yes, sir.
All right, fantastic. So this issue of X-Men Volume 2, spoilers, I can't say spoilers enough. X Factor issue 1 is an absolute must read going forward. It is an absolute must read before you pick up X-Men of issue 2, before you pick up Fallen Angels. X Factor #1 is an absolute must read because of an event that takes place in that issue, and I think you both know what I'm talking about.
Do you mean X-Force?
X-Force, yes. What did I say?
X Factor.
Oh,
Factor.
sorry, X Force. I get those two mixed up.
I'm like, did I miss
X Force.
something?
Yeah, my bad. My bad. X Force. X Force. X Force. Because of an event that takes place in that issue. I won't spoil it for anybody who wants to go. Like I said, go pick that book up. You should be easily to find at your comic book shops. But it kind of plays an important role in these books going forward. So X-Men issue 2, it picks up. You got Cyclops. You've got and his kids. You got Cyclops. You've got Rachel and young Cable, and they're noticing that the island of Krakoa is kind of moving towards another location, another entity. It's something's calling to this island. So they go to try and figure out what is calling Krakoa to it, and they start. They go to this island and they find another entity, kind of like a spirit of sorts, and they try to attack and kill the spirit. Well, that doesn't work out so well in their favor, and the spirit's kind of just like, if you want to be hostile, we can get hostile. But she doesn't. You can tell it doesn't really want to. And Cyclops is kind of like, I just want to know why Krakoa is being called to this other island, and she's like, well, don't you want to be with the one that you love? And Cyclops is like, well, yeah. And then she kind of explains that these two islands are meant to be together. They're in love. They're to be joined. And so at the end of it, you kind of see Krakoa and this other island join up, but out of the shadows comes someone else that kind of embraces this entity, in Apocalypse. So what did you guys think of this issue of X-Men #2? What do you think of 2 issues in after the House and Powers of 10 stuff? What do you guys kind of think is what's your thoughts on X-Men? How do you feel about it? Is it something you're going to continue reading going forward?
I'm kind of on the fence on it myself. I mean, it's good. It's not as it's a lot faster developing than it was originally. I will say that, because it felt like at times maybe setting up the storyline or something that was a little slower, a little longer to kind of get together. But I am getting it now, kind of getting a hang on it. I do like the progression. I liked having Apocalypse at the end. I had no idea that was coming up, and I'm not really sure what Hickman is leading up to with that, but I'm excited for that. So I think I'll stick through the run. I just need something more. I mean, this had a little bit more action in there, but it's a lot of dialogue. I understand that, but I need something to kind of keep me more engaged. I get you're setting up a universe, so you have to do the backstory and everything moving forward. And this book, I think, did a great job actually progressing. Like you said, they're on the island, they're moving on, and this kind of comes about, the events unfold. But maybe some more of that direction, less of a slog. I think that's just my own personal take on it.
Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I agree with Corbin. I am a huge X-Men fan. In fact, X-Men are the first comics that I started reading. That were kind of like the gateway drug to everything else. So I'm going to be reading this crap regardless. But I do agree with Corbin. Sometimes it gets so fantastical that you're like, what? And you kind of wonder, like you were saying, Corbin, House of X and Powers of X there was a lot of strange stuff going on, especially when they have like the flash forwards and they'd show these different, and I couldn't help but wonder, am I really going to need to know any of this? Is any of this going to matter when the rest of the issues start up? And so far, no. The whole future storyline hasn't come into play yet for all of these, for Marauders, for X-Men, for any of these that have come out so far. And this issue was very bizarre. It had in my opinion, it had a very heavy fantasy vibe to it. Like Matt was saying about the two islands are coming together, and there's a spirit that controls the other island, and it's really bizarre. And I mean, it's, first of all, Krakoa, the fact that Krakoa is a living island, it's a sentient thing, and here's this other sentient island, and they merge, and then there's this spirit controlling oh my gosh, it's really weird. and so I know what you're saying, but for me, the misses, the hits outweigh the misses, and so it's enough to keep me engaged. So yeah, I'm gonna keep
My general
keep on with this.
my general consensus on this is that X-Men, the standalone book written by Hickman, coming out of Powers and House of 10 or X, whatever you want to call it, it seems to be the weakest, well, one of the weakest of the lineup, the first wave of X books to come. So,
Which one? The X-Men?
yes.
This one?
Well, the first two, this issue and the first issue.
I liked the first issue.
I think that out of the first launch so far of number ones we've had, X-Men was one of the weakest. X-Men and New Mutants were probably the two weakest books, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't too fond of New Mutants. I will say that.
Yeah, it was.
But I think what's drawing me to this is, like Corbin said, it's world building. There's Hickman setting it up. Of course, there's obviously something bigger at play here. He's getting you from point A to point B. So you're going to have lull issues like this, and it's only the second issue, so I'm not too worried about it, especially with what he was doing and what he was able to do with House and Powers of X, or 10, whatever you want to call it. I thought it was interesting to see Cyclops and his kids working together.
Yeah, that was cool. I did like that a lot.
And one of the things I love about these Hickman's X-Men run so far is how far back in the continuity he's willing to go to bring stuff into his new universe that he wants to play with. And kind of like, you could tell he's picked and choose some of the most prolific and pivotal moments from X-Men history to kind of bring into this universe. So I'm excited for it moving forward. Right now, I'm kind of staying even keeled about it. I would probably give X-Men issue 2 probably a 3.5 out of 5. It was kind of middle of the road. Like Corbin said, there was a little bit more action, but kind of like what you touched on, the whole Sentient Island thing and the whole love story between the two islands was kind of like whatever. And the main piece that held it together for me was the apocalypse at the end. Apocalypse is trying to play nice, but with the events that have played out, and with what I was talking about before in X Factor, right? X Factor, and X Factor, you can kind of see that there might potentially be a power play in the works here between a couple of different players, and we're just waiting to see, how it plays out going forward. So I think 3.5 out of 5 is where I'm going to sit on X-Men issue 2.
Before we move on, I want to get you guys' opinion. What do you guys think of Kid Cable?
I think he's interesting.
I mean, positively, I guess I'll say interesting, if not unnecessary in my opinion. But I guess, got some leeway to kind of add. I mean, not unnecessary in the sense of like his importance to the story. I just don't see him as overly impactful to me. But again, I was one of those guys that I'm catching on X-Men. I'm big on X-Men, but only in the sense of like, this is starting from the beginning. I had to catch on everything to kind of get on this roller coaster before it starts. So there's certain issues that I don't find as compelling, and there's certain characters I'm not really totally sold on. Kid Cable being one of them, but he's okay. Like, I don't hate him.
In Uncanny, when Kid Cable came, was it Uncanny or was it the old X-Force? When Kid Cable came and killed old Cable, it stung a little. I was a little pissed, but I kind of like the Kid Cable. It's grown on me. And the thing with, I don't know if this is gonna come into play, but one of the things about Cable was that his like telekinesis was always weakened because he had to keep that techno-organic virus in his arm in check using it. And so the thing with Age of Apocalypse and X-Man was that X-Man didn't have that techno-organic virus, and so he was able to use his telekinesis and his abilities to the fullest, and so he's way more powerful. But I don't know if they're going to do this with Kid Cable. Doesn't look like it. I hope they do. That would be awesome. But yeah, I like him too.
I think he kind of has a little bit of like a watered down Deadpool vibe to him. especially kind of in
Really?
in X-Men 2 when he hands the spirit a grenade. And he's like,
yeah, that was
you know,
weird.
I'm gonna give her a gift. I gave her a plasma grenade. It's not my fault she set it off. You know.
I
So
couldn't tell if he was just being a smartass or if he was being sincere about that.
no, he was definitely being a sarcastic smartass.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying now. Then,
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's further development, like you said, the world building, character building. I'm sure there's ways to progress it. Right now, where I stand, but that's a good point because that was kind of annoying there, Matt. It's like that Deadpool archetype is overplayed, and they give it to these people where they try to make them kind of do new lingo, like certain comic characters. It's like please stop. Like, just keep them true to who they are. It's not that hard.
So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. What is your take on it? Not Lance.
I'd probably give it a 3.
A
3 out of 5. Yeah.
All right, then I would have to go 2.5.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow, really?
That hurt me a little.
I'm sorry, I was a little lower on it. I mean, I can't go. I mean, okay, you know what? No, I'm gonna stick to my guns. 2.5. It was okay.
Yeah, stick to your guns.
You go, Corbin.
Here we go.
No.
Corbin just likes to pull attention to his guns.
Hey, that's all. Give me a reason to say guns so I can do my. No, I'm playing.
You just gotta make sure you stick to them.
All right,
All right,
What?
Corbin, you're up next, bud. What do you got for us?
my turn. I have been reading some Batman, so I have Detective Comics 2015. It's titled Mr. and Mrs. Freeze, written by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Doug Mankey and Jose Luis. And you know what? It was an interesting book. It was kind of picking off from 2014, where Mr. Freeze was given regeneration serum from Lex Luthor. He decided to use it on who else but Nora Freeze to bring her back to life. And it spends a lot of that issue him showing her the world and how to, you know, get her body used to not having to use the helmet, but while living in super cold temperatures internally and experiencing life that way. Also, during the spree of saving her and bring her to life, he froze a lot of people, as he's wont to do. So it ends with Batman trying to save these people. So 2015 really started with it's two segments of the story. One half is Mr. Freeze and Mr. Freeze going on the crime spree, but this time it's really just to get money so they can live their life. Like, they need to fund their getaway, and this is how they're doing it. It's not for she has Nora Freeze, so it's not for her. It's for crime, but it's not for the sake of just, like, being crime lords or whatever. It's just to make money so we can move away and live out our lives in happiness, right? As Mr. Freeze is doing this, though, he notices that Nora is a lot more aggressive and taking more pleasure in hurting people or in having this power over them. And he's wondering, that's interesting? Is that something from the serum that Lex gave me that is causing her to have these effects? Why is she a lot more aggressive? You know, we're just doing this to go to Alaska and live our lives out. Like, I'm not really sure why she's taking so much pleasure in this. On the other segment of the story, you have Batman, Alfred, and Lucius Fox, who are working on creating a serum of their own to release these people from being frozen, to kind of bring them back. They're not dead, they're just frozen. So that's really the plot line to keep them out of the way. They end up coming across a serum that they think might work. Of course, Bruce figures the only way to find out for himself is test it for himself. So he has Lucius Fox freeze one of his arms and then use the serum on it to see if it works. It does work with mixed results. It brings his arm back, like it's defrosted and everything, but he doesn't have motion in that arm, like his nerves are froze. So his arm is basically out of commission there. Going back to the Mr. Nora and Mr. Freeze plot line, they end up making enough money. Mr. Freeze is okay, Nora, time to go. And then Nora's like, no, I'm not going to be your puppet anymore. We're done. We're going to go separate ways. And then Mr. Freeze goes full out, no, Nora, you can't leave me. I will follow you forever.
That is crazy.
Like, I'm going to stick with you. And then Nora's like, yeah, you're probably right. You would fall into the end of the earth. So then she freezes him and bounces. Batman ends up getting a distress call or whatever have you from Mr. Freeze. And they kind of work together, or they meet together. And Mr. Freeze is like, hey, I need your help. Nora's gone rogue. She's a lot crazier than I thought. I had no idea what she's planning on doing, but she needs to be stopped. And Batman's like, well, guess what? You need to help me out because we have people here who are frozen that can be brought back. And my arm is incapacitated right now, so I need your help right now. So
Incapacitated.
Incapacitated.
We got the gist.
Thank you, though. But his arm was incapacitated. We said it. I'm not saying it again. Okay,
It won't move.
All right, here we go. I said it. All right. Anyway, he fixes his arm, or he says, "Okay, I will help you if you help me," and they form an uneasy alliance. So at the very end of the issue, it turns out that Nora is at her parents' gravesite, which I'm not really sure about these. Mr. Freeze at Nora's grave and Nora at. Anyway, she's at her parents' gravesite, and she's sitting there going, "You know what? A lot of stuff you guys provided for me, I didn't really listen, but I have big plans in store, and you won't believe it." And as she's like going off to do whatever her diabolical plan is, it just shows Mr. Freeze like basically prepped for battle with Batman, and it's like one of his many like ice resistant suits, almost like he's wore a different variant of the suit before in the past, but it's like the colors of the Batman Beyond, so the black and dark red with like the mask and like a fire gun. It's pretty sick of a spread as far as illustrations are concerned, and so I really liked it. And you could see those two are getting ready for the next the next clash against Nora. So that wraps up the story. To be honest with you, I wasn't too wild about it. For a story called Mr. and Mrs. Freeze, we got 1 2-page spread of the two of them committing various crimes and being together. The rest of it, they were split, and then the story ended. So I kind of felt like they were going on a certain direction, and maybe they had to curtail it real quick or hastily switch storylines or something, because it felt so abrupt that they were going to team up. That's how the last 1014 led us to believe.
Yeah.
And then after 3 pages, no, we're going to split. I thought that was rushed. I'm intrigued by what Nora Freeze's motivations are. Obviously, I think I'm one of many who agree that Mr. Freeze can be quite clingy. Victor, so to have Nora call him out on his ish was kind of funny. But then she just totally broke character to me and was like, "Well, now I'm gonna do my own thing. And what if I like to see people fear my power?" And I was like, "Okay, I guess." It was weird. It just felt like a quick kind of jolting kind of book. To have Batman out of the way was nice, but then again, if you're going to put him to the side, working on a plot device, but something that will help him, he's doing something important to the moving of the storyline, but also not the main figure in the story, then you have to make Mr. and Mrs. Freeze that part of the story, because otherwise you have a book that I end up having, which is kind of lost in what it wants to do in terms of direction, who it wants to focus on character-wise. I would end up saying that the main character would actually be Victor Freeze, because a lot of his thoughts, especially on Nora and her behavior and changes, is coming from his perspective in his person, as far as the writing is concerned. And that was interesting, but again, I was led to believe this is going to be a Mr. and Mrs. Freeze book, and it was not. That being said, the artwork, Doug Mankey and Jose Luis did a great job. Really enjoyed it. The writing was not bad. Peter J. Tomasi is not a bad writer at all, and it was a solid book. I would give it a 3 out of 5.
When you read that book,
man, please, man.
When you read that book, do you read it in the Arnold voice? Whenever
not at all. I
Freeze.
do my
Chill out.
Do not kill the dinosaurs. The Ice Age.
No. Although I gotta say that is that would be a funny one to do. Except I suck at it. I do the Michael Ansara voice. The original Mr. Freeze, Heart of Ice, Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze is always in my head. Obviously growing up with that, but that's honestly exactly how I read it. So it was interesting.
Help me, Batman. Nora put my heart
Nora!
on ice.
Nora! That's all he says 18 times a show. Nora! So he said it then too as she left him. And that was interesting. Again, I'm not really sure where they're going. I am intrigued, but at the same time, I was mildly disappointed by what I thought the story would go into and what it ended up leading off to.
I've loved the Mr. Freeze arc in Detective. I think it's so cool that they took it in a totally different way than I've ever seen. And it's funny because listening to your description, dude, you sold that to me. Even when you said I don't like it, I'm like, dude, what you just said sounds awesome.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's worth. I say it's a solid read. 3 out of 5. I mean, that for me, I'm sure we both agreed from the X-Men show. It's a solid book. I wouldn't say miss out on it. It's not bad at all. Maybe I came with higher expectations just based on what I thought the storyline was going to go. But you're right. Mr. Freeze's arc in Detective Comics has been really interesting, and I am intrigued to see further his own evolution. I was just encouraged to see with the reintroduction of Nora how those two would kind of relate, and whether she would be appalled by the life of crime, embrace it, and then kind of love it a little too much for Victor, and how that would kind of contrast. And it felt like it was a little rushed, but yeah, it's definitely worth the read. I think it was really interesting, and I'm intrigued to see what happens next. I just wish this book was just a little bit better.
So that was a one-off, right? It's one of those what if stories, or is it a continuation?
Oh no, this is a continuation.
No,
Yeah, this is the Detective
ongoing.
Comics Year of the Villain thing. So
Okay.
I'm sure it'll conclude 1016, 1017 with like an epic showdown there. I would imagine there's another twist somewhere down the line. Otherwise, it would be way too direct for me. I mean, it wasn't like Nora did anything to show she was more powerful than Victor. To subdue him. She just kind of surprised him and froze him. You know what I mean? He was so overcome by his love of Nora and shocked by what she's become that he didn't offer any resistance. So I would imagine that there is some additional plot twists or something to keep it moving along. Otherwise, it's going to be a fairly direct one more issue, end of story type thing.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got next for us, Jay?
So I kind of want to talk about Star Wars. I got Star Wars.
You and everybody else lately.
Yeah. Star Wars number 74, which is actually going to bring this chapter of the Star Wars comics to a close, which is, they've been so hit or miss. I've stuck to it because I just like having new Star Wars stories, and some of them have been really cool, but some of them are not so cool. And this one is not so cool. So there's like, okay, they've split off, in hopes of trying to kind of corner Vader and the Empire. And one of probably the dumbest storylines is Chewie and 3PO, okay, dynamic duo there, go to a planet that's supposed to be free of life, and they set up these I guess like these explosives all over the planet so that they can blow it up when they lure a fleet of Imperial Star Destroyers or whatever close to the planet, and they blow up the planet and they blow up all those Star Destroyers. Well, they found rock people, and they literally look like those rock people in Galaxy Quest on the planet. And turns out 3PO can talk to them. And I don't know, man. I don't even want to go on because it's so horrible. Let's just say Star Wars number 74. Like I said, the whole thing ends with 75, and then so right now these stories take place between A New Hope and Empire, and the new chapter is supposed to take place between, I believe, Empire and Jedi, which will be cool because, man, we've seen this scenario of these guys, Luke, Leia, Han, for a long time. Now they're going to throw Lando in the mix, and Han's going to be gone. So I'm anticipating the next volume of this because it's kind of lame, and it ends with like Chewie like grabbing Vader, because Vader makes it on the rock planet, and Chewbacca like starts grappling with Darth Vader, and you're like, I don't know, man. It just doesn't really seem like much of a contest to me, but we'll see what happens. That's where it ended. That's where this issue ended, with Vader getting Chewbacca in like a force choke, and that's where that was the last page. So I don't know. I would give this, and the art's kind of lame too. It's kind of cartoony, like like
Who's
little
the
child.
artist on it?
The artist is Phil Noto.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Noto's
Okay,
a
I'm
great
gonna go
artist
ahead.
too.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, so to tell you the truth, did he color it? Yeah, it looks like he did. Yeah, I'm not digging the art so much. I was a big fan of Salvador Larroca, who used to do the art before. But I'm gonna go ahead and look at this through Corbin goggles, and I'm gonna give it like a 2.5 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah, that's that horrible.
Like,
Is it a book? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Corbin.
I was gonna say, is it something that is going to inspire you to read the next one, or as far as like continue on, or was it like, a bad egg in a set that I'm still interested in?
It's a bad egg in a set that I'm so interested in. I'm going to still read them. Like I said, this volume's going to close out here next issue. They're going to end at 75, and then they're going to bring it to a whole different timeline. And so I'm not sad to see this volume come to a close.
Gotcha.
Out there.
Interesting. All right, so let's move on to. I want to save Fallen Angels for last, so let's move on and talk about the newest book to come from Scott Snyder and Charlie Soule. I know this book actually came out 2 weeks ago, but due to circumstances, we had to push our show a week. So I still want to talk about it just because of Scott Snyder is such a big name, as well as Charlie Soule. Don't want to take anything away from him. Undiscovered Country #1 from Image Comics. You read this book too as well, right, Jay?
Yes, I did.
I'm interested to hear your take on it because I'm a little on the fence about it. I don't know if I'm gonna pick up in issue 2. Kind of halfway through it, I was kind of like, this is kind of stupid. So the premise behind it is that the United States has been walled off. If politics, whatever, we're not going to go into that, but the United States has been walled off, and it's a closed country. We don't export, import, nothing. We are a self-sufficient, self-sustaining country in the United States in this book. And so there's this doctor who is over seas, and she's fighting a virus that's called a sky virus. It's pretty much killing everybody and making everyone sick. And the world's governments are essentially trying to wipe out the people sick with this virus, where they're dropping like different things on them to try and kill the virus. And the people are trying to find refuge any way they can. And this lone doctor is trying to help as many people as she can that are sick with this sky virus. And essentially another gentleman comes out of the shadows and say, listen, we've got a radio transmission from the United States saying that they have a cure for this virus. You are the leading expert in this virus in this area. You know the most about it. We need you to come with us and verify that what they're saying is accurate. And so they listen to the transmission from this doctor who says that, again, got the cure. We're from the United States. Come follow our rules and you'll be welcomed in. No problem. Well, as they're flying over the wall of the United States, they get shot down by a rocket and they kind of crash land in the desert where all these other people kind of come, and I want to say it's almost very Mad Maxy, kind of like with the vehicle places.
Definitely.
And they come and they take them to an underground bunker, and they're saying that they're in the Oval Office under this underground bunker, and they're all kind of confused. And that's kind of when a gentleman at the end of it shows up, saying that my name is Sam Elgin, and I want you to save America. And he looks very much like an Uncle Sam type character. Like I said, it was kind of a hard read. I actually had to sit down twice to try to read through this book, and it just didn't grasp me. Like I don't know, the concept of it is just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint. I would say definitely check it out for yourself, but it's not a book that I think I'm gonna continue reading. I might give it my traditional 3-issue go, but just kind of the consensus in issue 1 is just kind of like it's not a book for me. It's not geared towards me, and I'm kind of getting the feeling that it might be a little bit more political than I want.
It definitely has political undertones for sure. They're not even undertones. They're just pretty much in your face.
Mm-hmm. But the CW effect?
Yeah.
But they're not as clumsy. It's kind of clever the way that they kind of put it in there. See, I kind of had the opposite effect that Matt did. I got this not knowing what it was or anything, and I thought it was really interesting. Their Image puts out, gosh, man, depending on a lot of new miniseries, and I check most of them out, and to be honest, I get kind of bored within the 2-3 issues, and that's powering through it. This new one, this Undiscovered Country, I liked quite a bit. I thought it was really cool how, so like Matt was saying, the rest of the world is suffering, and they've got this plague, and it's just nasty all over the world. And they kind of see the United States, well, they were smart. They closed off their walls, and so now they don't have any of this crap. So they're sitting pretty. They're probably more technologically advanced. It's they kind of think it's like utopian, and yeah, like Matt was saying, they got this message. They fly over there, they get shot down, and it turns out they're not. And it's even worse than the rest of the world because it's got some pretty, like it's very Mad Max. It's almost like, I want to almost say like it's got Walking Dead vibes because of just the group that they're in, and part Mad Max, and even like that you see at the very end this enormous like vehicle, like Mortal Engines type vehicle coming at them. So it's very post-apocalyptic, and there is a lot of politics, and I like this first issue, but I can easily see it going south.
I think it was more weird for me because it's very post-apocalyptic, I think, in the worst kind of way, because like you have manta rays pulling trucks. You have a dude show up riding a shark and land. Like you have a dude riding a buffalo, and the buffalo like just annihilates this dude and starts eating him. It's just, I just think it was so. The fish
stuff is weird. The fish stuff is weird. The buffalo thing I thought was kind of cool though.
And then like you said, then this one poor sap that couldn't afford something cool like a land shark has got a little Walter White meth RV back here, but and like you said, it's got like giant ships. This dude looks like he's like driving the Titanic through the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
And so it's a little weird on the way things are working. But yeah, you're very much correct. It is like, people they gave up this front that America closed themselves off. They did the right thing, and it goes to show that it's just as bad as there it is the rest of the world. And they're like, well, we got this transmission, and they're like, well, we don't know anybody by that name who sent the transmission, and we don't know about this transmission, but we need you to help save us. So I don't know. I'll give it the 3 issues, but I'm kind of like, for as much push as this book has, and I understand it. You've got names like Charlie Soule and Scott Snyder, two of the biggest writing names in comics right now. It's going to get a big push. Like this book had like 4 or 5 variants. Certain stores had store exclusive variants, and I'm just like, I don't see the hype behind it. And usually for me, Scott Snyder's a hype machine. His runs on Batman, Witches, kind of like detective. Everything he's touched to me has been great until
American
Vampire, yep. And so Undiscovered Country just didn't hit it with me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an uncultured swine, or I just really don't like politics. I think you look anywhere in the news today, and all you hear is politics, 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 and impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. And it's like, do you really want that dripping into your comics too? But
see, that's an interesting
Image
question.
has a lot of that, though. Image has a lot of that. But see, I'm glad I didn't. I got the hype now. You know, I got the book and I read it, and then I started going online and saying, "Whoa, there's a lot of hype behind this book." So I'm kind of glad I didn't see that first, because that might have skewed my opinion. But I definitely see where you're coming from. There is a lot of that. There's a lot of politics in this, and if you've had it up to here, then yeah, I can see how this book isn't gonna go down well for you.
I mean, I honestly have to give this book probably a 2.5 out of 5. Yeah.
Everybody follow my lead. My 2.5s. Everybody want them.
Well,
Everyone get the Corbin goggles on.
I just, I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm willing to give it the 3-issue shot. That's my minimum. 3 issues, and I bail. And
there you go.
after issue 1, I'm just like, I don't know if I want to keep going.
Wow.
Yeah, I usually, honestly, with a lot of these Image miniseries, I usually fall off after 2 or 3 anyway. So, yeah we'll see.
If it's not compelling, I could definitely see it being dropped. I mean, I wasn't even into it, but like, if that's how sour a feeling it is on it, it's like, okay, well, you got like one more shot with me, and that's about it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
What do you got next, Corbin?
Well, my last one is the Tales from the Dark multiverse, and I have to say I've really liked this whole series. It's basically DC's version of What If, but just darker renditions of classic DC storylines. So you have Nightfall, Death of Superman, Blackest Night, Infinite Crisis, and then the Judas Contract. And all of those stories are really deep, nuanced stories that can always go darker, and that's been exciting. And they've been really solid with each one. So far, it's been Nightfall, and it's also been the death of Superman, and now we have Blackest Night. And Blackest Night was basically, here's the cover for it. If anyone's watching can see. If not, just look up Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Blackest Night. But it was a huge universe-spanning event written almost 10 years ago by Jeff Johns, and there was 3 villains: Necron, Black Hand, and Scar, and they had the power of like the Black Lantern rings, which represented death. They threw those in the universe, which basically brought back every dead DC villain or character, but made them twisted, zombified versions of themselves. So they were stopped by a few characters who ended up becoming White Lanterns, which represented light or represented life, and they managed to reverse the effects of this damage that was caused. So it was a dark story, definitely a lot of death in there. And the Tales from the Dark Multiverse, this issue, this number 1, attempted to basically answer the question, what would happen if Sinestro was the only White Lantern and was unable to stop the Black Lanterns, who would just continue the progress that they made. So in this one, the world is in decay because the Black Lanterns won. That's where the story begins, where you're basically following Sinestro, Dove, if you watch Titans, Hawk and Dove, that character Dove, Lobo, and Mr. Miracle. And as you would imagine, as Tales from the Dark Multiverse, it doesn't end well for these characters. But it really is interesting. I did like the inclusion of Lobo. What do you do when you're, having a book full of violence and death and you'll make it darker? You throw Lobo in the mix. That spices it up, So that was fun. The writing was different for me. And by the way, I didn't even mention the creative team. So it was written by Tim Seeley with art by Kyle Hotz. You're going from Jeff Johns to Tim Seeley. Tim Seeley's a great writer. He did some work on Grayson, I read. And there was, I think it was Money Shot, another title he was behind. And he's a good writer, but it is a different feel. It's definitely a different feel, especially when you're talking about a storyline that was iconic for its time and you kind of know the writing style of Jeff Johns. To go from that to Tim was different, but it wasn't negative. It was just a different note. To have Lobo in there, I did like his inclusion. There was actually some character development in this story concerning him, which was really nice, especially in a story that you ultimately know is going to end up badly for everyone. So to kind of see them kind of stop in this one shot and give a little bit of development to Lobo was really cool. The inclusion of Mr. Miracle was fun and also dark and sad. It's hard not to ruin the story because we already know kind of coming in that everything goes wrong, and to just say how it all goes wrong, to me, especially on these types of stories, would just be spoiling everything. But let's just say that Lobo tries to do a very heroic thing in sacrificing himself, and in doing so makes everything that much worse. And that is pretty much where you ended at. And also Sinestro, who in this storyline in general was trying, I mean, in the Blackest Night storyline in general was trying to kill himself and couldn't make that happen. The same result happens. The world goes to straight pot, and Sinestro is still alive and begging with Tempest Fuganot, which is the watcher of the DC Dark Multiverse series. He's basically begging him, please just end my pain, like let me go. And Tempest is like, nah, man, I'm just telling what happened here. I can't save you. Like, this is the world that you have inherited. This is your penance, and now move to the next world. And that was an interesting kind of note on the end of the book. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. I think I like the fact that in this oversized kind of issue, they were able to pack in so much and continuing the story, adding different characters, and also making it that you had this sense of dread. And the Dark Multiverse series in general has kind of given that sense of, oh, this isn't going to end well. But like with each page you're building, like, oh, snap, this happened here. How is this going to tie into this next event? And ultimately, you know, it's going to come down to a crashing, screaming halt. But getting up to that point, it's like building that pressure and building that tension. And I think that each creative team that's been behind each of these books so far has done an amazing job of that. And this book was no exception. So I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Ah,
You sold me.
finally.
I'm gonna check it out tomorrow when I go pick up new comic book releases.
All right, there you go.
You definitely sold me. Now these Dark Multiverse, these are one-off stories, right?
They are.
So
Yeah.
it's trying to tell it's a retelling of that story in one issue, right?
Exactly, which is really cool. So like the Batman Nightfall, it was what if Azrael had won, and that one was amazing. I liked how dark it was, and just again this pressure building. Batman goes to reclaim the
Superman
mantle.
one was cool too.
The Superman was cool too. Exactly. What if Lois Lane becomes the Eradicator, and moved by the emotion that she feels because Superman was being used in her mind by everyone, she takes it out, and it's crazy with that great power. I mean, what does she do with that? Each one has like this singular event. In this case, Sinestro being, I mean, the least likely person to save the universe, and ultimately is. And you bring in a character in Lobo who is just written just as fun and build some depth there, but you ultimately know, you're doing the best you can, man, but it's not going to end up going well. And that's been a signature of these series, of these one shots. I'm still looking forward to Infinite Crisis. Definitely looking forward to the Judas Contract. But you have these big storylines that we remember as comic book readers from years past, and let's make them darker. The hero doesn't come out on top, and you know this going in. You just don't know how it happens, and that is exciting.
You sold me. I will be picking that up when I go to the comic book shop tomorrow.
Awesome.
Definitely sold me. What do you got?
Appreciate it.
What do you got, Jay? Not Lance? Whatever you want to be called.
Well, maybe we should end with Event Leviathan. So have you guys been keeping up with the other ones?
I fell out a little early. I wasn't moved by like the event itself, so I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say. I think I pulled it after like issue 3.
Bendis is writing that, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I loved Bendis' work in Marvel, but he has shit the bed since he's transferred over to DC.
Yep.
And I just don't know if he doesn't know what to do with these characters. I think maybe giving him Superman was the wrong place to start.
Yep.
But I've heard interesting things about this series, and that it feels like every single issue is like you're kicking off a new storyline that goes nowhere.
Yep.
I have actually kind of liked the series, with the exception of the last couple of issues, where it's almost like they had this really cool plot, and then they just had to kind of stretch it over 6 issues, which probably would have been better at like 4, to tell you the truth. I like their use of, I mean, it's pretty, so everybody pretty much is in here trying to solve this, who is Leviathan. And Leviathan is somebody that went and took out all the spy organizations in the DC universe. They took up, like Argus and, who else? What are the one that Nightwing the one that Dick Grayson used to belong to? It's slipping my memory. Anyway, so they took him out, and you got all the heroes kind of trying to figure out who this mysterious group is that's doing this, and the whole purpose of Leviathan is they want to expose everything that governments have locked away in secret, and they want to just leak everything to everybody so that there's this total transparency. And they're trying to get Superman on their side, and they're totally convinced they can if they just kind of explain what they're trying to do. So they're not, I mean, in a sense, they're not like villains. They're almost like anti-heroes, because they believe they're doing the world justice. And I mean, depending on how you look at it, you could think they're right. And in a lot of sense, they all kind of are what they want to do. And they're motivated. They're not motivated really by evil. They just want to make the world a better place. And they think this is how you do it. And I like the use of all the characters, because Superman and Lois are kind of spotlight in the center of this, and Green Arrow and Zatanna and Talia al Ghul's in this, but I won't spoil it because it just came out, but you finally get to know who Leviathan is, and that's what's been kind of motivating this whole series is, who is this being that's always a step ahead of all the heroes, that's managed to do all of this under everybody's nose and get away with it. And then when you find out who it is, you're just kind of like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Underwhelming, would you say?
Yeah, in a sense, but it's going to continue.
It's someone stupid, isn't it?
What's that?
Leviathan is somebody stupid, isn't it?
Kinda. It makes sense. It makes sense who it is, but still, it's not like one of those, oh my gosh moments. It's kind of one of those like, okay, Like
it kind of goes out with a whimper instead of a bang.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. And I've really liked it. I think it's gritty, and I like the artwork, and it's just, I don't know. I've enjoyed it. Like I said, up until this issue and issue number 5. But I mean, they can't all be winners, I guess.
So what would your score of it be?
For the whole series or just this issue?
I mean, do it of the whole series. Why not? Would you recommend the series to somebody? If you were sitting in a comic book shop and they were looking at a trade of it, would you recommend it?
No. Now that it's over, no. If it was like issue 2 or 3, I would. But now, no. I'd probably give it 2.5 with the way everything played out.
Over 6 issues?
Yeah.
2.5 over 6 issues.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's not very
That's
good.
rough. I mean, especially for a signature event like Leviathan was supposed to be. Supposed to be. Invested
in this, and just to kind of like Corbin said, it kind of ended in a whimper. I'm like, oh, that's it? I don't know. But, I mean, that's just my opinion. What do I know?
And you're a common expert here on the spinner rack, okay? That's what you know. Remember that. Own that, Jay. Not Lance. All right?
All right.
There we are. Exactly. It wasn't great. I can't talk that much because I didn't finish it, but you can. So do it.
That seems to be the MO with a lot of DC events. I mean, look at Doomsday Clock. I mean, how many people checked out a Doomsday Clock?
DC clock, in my opinion. That's
Yeah.
what I'm calling it. It's ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
DC this year has not had a great year. I think we could say that unequivocally, hands down. It's just been rough, and all these events that have just fizzled out. The year of the villain. I mean, Lord.
Well, I think it's because a lot of it. I think is because they made so many promises coming in out of Rebirth that we're not going to have all these issues. Single character issues. We're going to keep it to a core, core number in our core heroes, and it's kind of like that lasted for a year, and then they've kind of just fallen back into their old ways.
I don't even think they know what that means anymore. When they say these promises that we're going to keep things simple and we're not going to, convolute things or wreck things up for the sake of doing that they even know what that is. Tom King on Batman, I mean, I can go into this. I'm just going to stop right here. But Tom King on Batman and Brian McBendis on Superman this year have just been horrific, in my opinion. We didn't get a chance to really touch on it, but I hated Batman 82. Was not a fan of how that whole story worked out. And I'm not excited, although I will finish it just because I'm kind of committed.
Well, it's weird because, we made fun of On Absolute Geek, we made fun of Rebirth, and it's not a reboot, but Rebirth started off strong. And Tom King started off writing strong on Batman. His first couple of series and stories on Batman were really good until you got to the Catwoman. I think where it derails is the Catwoman, Bruce Wayne, Selena Kyle love story.
And I mean, also let's give some blame on his writing style as well. I think he took certain tropes that were not popular, and instead of changing them, doubled down on it. I mean, there was a lot of pointless exposition through a lot of it. There was straight poetry in some. There was some storylines that were out of character. Some story segments that were out of character for certain DC Universe characters. I get you putting a different stamp on them. But when I'm reading a character, I shouldn't have to go, oh, this isn't Batman. This is Tom King if he was Batman. I know we were friends a while ago, Matt, with now I'm forgetting his name now, Kevin Smith on Batman, and how I didn't put the two of them together. I shouldn't have to worry about the creator putting his own stamp on it, but making the creator that character. There should be a line of difference, in my opinion. And it's kind of gone off the rails for a long time coming now. And rather than take that feedback, he's doubled down on it to the detriment of everything. Now you culminate in the City of Bane event where, you have Batman and Bane having this one-on-one fight, except it's not really a one-on-one fight. Meanwhile, Thomas Wayne is wreaking havoc and also getting in the picture because he wants to show Bruce that, oh, by the way, you shouldn't be like me. It's like, okay, then what are you doing? Like, there's so many pointless storylines and plot holes in this to kind of focus on this developing will they or won't they relationship between Batman and Catwoman that has spanned way too long, in my opinion.
The Tom King thing is interesting because, I mean, when he came to Batman, he came off a critically acclaimed book. He was coming off of Vision.
The Vision.
And he had good stories under his belt, and he was the man chosen to be Scott Snyder's successor. And I thought his stuff with Gotham Girl and like his first couple of stories where
I Am Gotham
were good, and it was good stuff. And then just about the time he decided to go the Batman Catwoman love story that went and is still going on way longer than it needed to. It just
Well, plus Mr. Miracle was awesome too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you guys. I was a big Tom King defender. I powered through those Catwoman issues, but oh my gosh, yeah. Again, it's one of those things that should have just been wrapped up, and I don't think anybody cares that much. I mean, it was cool in the beginning, but now it's turned into like this thing where you're like, oh my gosh, just do something. I don't even care. Just do something with your relationship.
It's run its course for sure.
Yeah.
And we still have a 12-issue maxi series still. So, I mean, this story won't end. And I'm hoping that having a concentrated series will keep King focused to keep a very tight storyline and start the beginning and get to the end with minimal fluctuation between everything else. That is my hope, but we'll have to wait and see.
And I know his time on Batman is coming to an end. Really soon. It's actually very soon. It's not. I can't remember what issue it is where he's leaving. Do you know, Corbin?
I think it's what? It's not 180. It's wrapping up 87. Let me check.
Out after issue
Oh,
85. Tom King leaves
85.
Batman
Okay,
after
there
issue
you go.
85.
So I mean, he
Oh,
has 3
wow.
issues left to work this out. Really, 2 now.
So, well, and then the next
And then
issue comes
85.
out.
So yeah,
Next issue comes out tomorrow. So,
yep. And I'm not excited for that, by the way.
and then the book transitions over to James Tynion. So I hope he does a much better job on the book with the Batman going forward. But as far as Bendis goes, I went from a huge Bendis supporter. I mean, God, he gave us Miles Morales. He gave us Ultimate Spider-Man. He gave us all new X-Men. Like, he gave us so much good stuff.
But he also gave us Civil War 2.
Well,
You gotta remember that.
yeah, and then
Oh yeah, balance it out.
kind of towards the end there when he, the choices he started to make with all new X-Men, and then when he went over to DC, it's like he never recovered. And his work on Superman has been some of the worst Superman stuff. And I'm not even a Superman fan.
Well, none of those Bendis tiles. Remember, they tried to create. He tried to create like his own universe with like Jinx World, and he had. I mean, it was super ambitious, and I'm pretty sure I got most of those titles, and they all sucked. I don't think there was one I can't even recall any of the storylines to any of them. And yeah, it's almost like, gosh, man, don't spread yourself out so thin. It's like, what he gets paid by like, by word, by sentence or whatever. I don't know what the deal is, but dude, it's like, man, you're going at it way too hard,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
All right, so let's get into my final book of the night, and I think it's one that I'm not sure if you both have read too, Fallen Angels.
Yeah.
You didn't read Fallen Angels, Corbin? I can't
I
count
did
on you
not.
for nothing.
No, okay, listen. I've been solid
You
for
had
3
one
books.
job,
I
Corbin.
dropped one.
No, you
Hey,
good? Yeah.
Watch next week. That's all I'm trying to say. Catch me next week, y'all.
I'll
How
catch
about
you
that?
next week.
All right.
Fallen Angels was the last book in the first number 1 runs of the new X-Men stuff so far of Phase 1. It sees Psylocke teaming up with X-23 and once again Young Cable. So Young Cable's getting a lot of shine in this new X-Men series right now.
They love them some Cable.
So it's an interesting take. You see, if you've been reading Excalibur, Betsy Bardock has separated, and she is no longer. What are you laughing at?
Jay understands, but I totally tried to joke, and you were not having it, sir.
What did you say? I completely missed it.
It was so forgettable. I forgot. I was like, "Oh, plenty of Cable or something," and you were like, "Anyway."
Moving on.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I missed it. Moving on.
Okay.
Betsy Bryan, if you read Excalibur, you know Betsy Bryan is now retaken the mantle of Captain Britain, which she has done before. And I'm going to mess up her name. I always do Kawana. How do you pronounce it? Kawana?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in X-Men lore, you know Psylocke took over her body, and that's how she kind of she went from being a British woman to that Asian supermodel, kung fu, purple-haired look that we all know and love. But they have split, and now where Betsy Bardock has taken up the mantle of Captain Britain again, Kawana is now taking up the mantle of Psylocke. She's going to continue being Psylocke. So this kind of sees, again, like I said, this plays out of events of previous books. X Factor, again, X Factor. The events of X Factor. I did.
With the incapacitated?
Yeah.
No, whatever.
Again, it plays off the events of X Factor. Someone key is missing, and I don't want to say because it spoils so much. But someone key is dead. Someone is dead. I don't know if they'll stay dead. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on that. But someone key is dead, and now you kind of, like I said, you see the heads of the other members of the Krakoan government kind of playing for power. And you have Kawana go to Magneto asking for permission to leave Krakoa to conduct a personal mission. And Magneto kind of says, no, but then it's kind of like, I don't want to let people know that I'm letting you do this, so go ask Mr. Sinister. So he kind of refers her to Mr. Sinister to go offer Krakoa to kind of to do this mission, and that's very personal to her. And it's kind of like the story kind of revolves around Kawana, X-23, and Cable kind of feeling like they don't belong in Krakoa. And X-23 even says, like, I need to get out of here. I want to go with you because I need to get out of Logan's shadow. I can't be in Logan's shadow anymore. And young Cable's just kind of like, I'm down to do whatever. So let's roll out, So it's just very interesting to kind of see this play out through the issue. I thought it was a strong first issue. I'm excited to see where it goes. I definitely love the artwork in it. Trying to find the creative team on it here. It's Brian Hill is a writer, and Sazmin, I'm going to butcher that, Kudryavtsky.
Good luck.
Kudryavtsky is the artist. I apologize if I butchered your name, but just the art in this book is absolutely beautiful. I love the use of the darker tones in this book.
Yeah.
I love kind of just, you're not sure fully on what's all going on yet with the story, but I kind of like the team up. The team up intrigues me. I don't know. I'd probably give this book a 4.5 out of 5.
Whoa, is that the high score of the night?
I think so.
Okay.
I liked this. I liked it a lot. Like I was expecting not to like Fallen Angels. I like Psylocke. I like X-23, but the art along with the kind of the darker story, and you kind of see all the different sides at play here, and it's very interesting, and I'm very intrigued, and it intrigued me to want to read the next issue. So
I'm gonna have to check it out.
I'd say it's a solid go. What did you think of it, Jay?
I liked it a lot. I honestly, I had to read it like some of the pages like a couple times because it was hard to really like get a full grasp on what was really going on. But the art and just the whole vibe of the book, it almost kind of reminded me of like Matrix, how like, they're kind of in like in a lot of the parts are like in dark glasses and like black leather outfits, and it's just really, it almost looks like like the storyboard of the Matrix,
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. But I liked their use of X-23. I liked that. Well, I mean, I don't know. I was going to say I like that they got Cable. The reason why they got him kind of makes sense. They're like, take him. He's a soldier first and foremost.
I think this page right here is incredible.
Yeah, that's very cool. Wow.
And then like just some of the, let's see, where is it? Like this right here of Magneto, just like the tones and stuff on Magneto.
Yeah. Well, even the part where they showed Sinister was really cool too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. The thing that amazes me is how they managed to give each of these X-Men books such a different vibe to each of them.
There's the Sinister. Here.
Yeah.
That's sick. And I'm right there with you, Jay. I mean, better or for worse, each one is different. I don't think there is one. There's no two titles alike that have the same kind of temperature. Whether it's good.
Right.
One has its own identity, and that is important, especially when you're rolling out so many books that are all in the same X-Men universe and tie-in that each have their own separate identity that you could read for its own style. So that is something that cannot be understated. Yeah, that's a really good point, Jay.
Well, I think that the books all kind of connect, and it's interesting. Like they're all different people writing them, and they connect. Except for, in my opinion, the only one that hasn't connected so far was New Mutants. I still don't understand what was going on with New Mutants.
You and me both. I have it right here in my hands. And I'm sitting going, what are you? Like, what are you? It was such an odd one. Just odd.
I think the book that stands out, other than Fallen Angels for me from this series, has got to be Marauders. Marauders is the one book in this new X-Men launch that I am so looking forward to issue 2.
It was such an interesting concept that I don't think anything has been done in X-Men like it. It's just a whole different concept. And that's what makes it so exciting for me.
Like I didn't understand why Kitty Pryde can't go through the portals to get into Krakoa. You know, it's like you think maybe she lost her powers, but then she phases later on. It's like, what's going on? And it's so intriguing. I think that cast intrigues the hell out of me. You know, we're at the end of the first issues of the new X-Men run of Phase 1 anyway. I know Phase 2 is coming, and we've got Wolverine and all these other ones coming still. But, you know, we're at the end of Phase 1, and other than New Mutants and the first 2 issues of X-Men, I'm solid. I'm sold. I'm excited. It's a rebirth of the X-Men.
Yeah. Hopefully they can keep it up.
And I think and that's why I was saying that Hickman is going deep, because to go all the way back to separate Kawana and Betsy Bardock again and make them 2 separate people is genius to me. After
and there's
long.
a panel here where they actually confront each other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's tense. Let's put it that way. It's tense.
I mean, she's come a long way from her time as a model and all that stuff, you know. It's very interesting to see where that book goes. So,
yeah.
What would you give that book?
I'd give it a 4.
Oh, you're gonna cut me off at the knees by 0.5.
The only reason why
undercut me by 0.5.
Like I said, there was a lot going on in it, and I'm not even sure I still fully get everything that just happened in this issue. I'm probably going to go back and read it again before I get issue 2. But that's the only reason. Other than that, it's pretty solid. I would definitely recommend this.
I would say this book is very much an identity crisis of sorts. Like, you're seeing these 3 characters play out their identity crises through, these 2 characters specifically.
Because really on point, man.
Young Cable is just kind of like, I'm here, I'm a soldier, I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum. What's up? But you have X-23 who doesn't know who she is. She wants to establish herself as a person. She doesn't want to live in Wolverine's shadow. She doesn't want to live in the shadow of Logan. And then you have, Kawana, who is now taking up Psylocke, and she doesn't want to live in the shadow of what Psylocke was when it was Betsy Bardock as Psylocke. She needs to establish her own meaning and her own personality to using this character and this name and what it represents and means to her. So, I mean, I think you could easily call the book Identity Crisis versus really Fallen Angels. But
you can even say that with Young Cable, because in a way he's kind of trapped in the shadow of the Cable everyone else used to know.
Yeah.
That like this hardened soldier that just had, that always knew what to do and was always prepared. Now you're this kid, and like, and you're almost living under the shadow of your former self.
Right?
Wow, man, that's deep.
Deep
cuts.
What can I say? I love comic book reviews.
There we are.
But all right, so those have been the reviews of the books we read last week. Now we're gonna tell you what we're looking forward to that comes out into your local comic shops tomorrow. So why don't we go ahead and I'll kick it to Corbin. I'll let you go first on what you're looking forward to tomorrow, what you got coming out on your pull list, and what you're gonna pick up.
I mean, I definitely have my Batman stuff. So that's Batman Beyond. Kind of figuring out the new identity of this Batwoman. Well, we already know, but kind of going on with that storyline. We have Batman 83, which, I mean, I'm going to read it. So there's that. I almost feel, let me just make sure. I feel like the Tales of the Adult Multiverse, no, that's next week. Let me just make sure. Oh, what the heck? I'll throw it in there. Tales from Dark Multiverse Infinite Crisis is going to be a big one. And if that comes out this upcoming next week, then whatever, because I still am very much enjoying it. And that's really going to be it. I mean, Legion of Superheroes. Let's give it another shot.
Jay, how about you?
Well, for DC, I'm with Corbin. I've got Batman number 83, Justice League 36, and I'm the only one I know of that's still hanging on Nightwing, because it was good once.
Power to you, man.
Rick Grayson, yeah, that whole thing's been played out, but
I love Rick Grayson.
I'm powering through, man. It's gonna get good again, I hope. Marvel Absolute Carnage 5 of 5 comes out tomorrow. Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers, Captain America, Conan the Barbarian number 11, Deadpool number 1. I'll probably get it, but not hoping. I don't have much hope in that. Excalibur number 2 comes out. Marauders number 2 comes out. It's a big Marvel week for me. It's a lot. Immortal Hulk. So yeah, that's what I'm getting.
I mean, we're pretty much on the same page, guys. I'm most looking forward to tomorrow the release of Batman 83, Absolute Carnage number 5. That's been a fantastic story. I'm excited to see how that ends. Even with all the tie-ins, I'm super excited to see how it ends. You have the Amazing Mary Jane number 2. I know some people didn't care for it. I'm excited to see where it goes. Amazing Spider-Man 34, the continuation of the Spider-Man 2099 tie-in.
Excited for that.
Deadpool number 1, Excalibur number 2, Marauders number 2, and kind of one that's sneaking under the radar that I think people should pay a little interest in is Fantastic Four 2099 number 1. So that's something to look forward to. And then, of course, like you said, Deadpool number 1. It's a huge week for comics. I mean, but we are kind of getting in towards the end of the year, the holiday season. So this is when things are going to start slowing down a little bit. But big Marvel week tomorrow for sure. But that's what I'm picking up tomorrow anyway.
That sounds exciting. We got some good reasons.
Yes,
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Is there anything else you guys want to cover? Any other things you found interesting about the books you read this week that you want to kind of touch on?
It's been good for me. This was fun. I mean, we got some in-depth reviews. A slow week. I think we made the most of it as far as books are concerned. I feel pretty confident about them.
Yeah. Are you guys picking up any of the Joe Hill stuff, the Hill House books on DC?
I keep forgetting. I wanted to read Basket Full of Heads. It seemed intriguing. I was listening to one of the interviews from Joe Hill, and it got me. It's just a matter of remembering to pick that up because not something I have on my pull list, but it's something that I do want to read. Have you read any of them?
I have Dollhouse Family. I haven't read it yet. I did read Basket Full of Heads, and it was fun. It's not a lot happened. You just kind of set everything up with characters, and once again, the very end page is the moment you're like, what? It's the cliffhanger, you know. So it's fun. It was a fun read. So we'll see where it goes. It's not too intense, you know. It's
nice, quick read.
But,
is there any under the radar books that came out recently that you guys think people should check out that you know didn't necessarily come out last week, but something that you would recommend if they're just walking into a comic shop and they're like, hey, let's take a look?
Well, I was really into Jeff Lemire's Berserker Unbound. it came out. It just ended a few weeks ago, and I'm big into like Conan type stuff. I love Conan the Barbarian. I love Master of the Universe, and so Berserker Unbound is about a character like that. It's a fantasy type thing where, again, big warrior dude. They kind of in the beginning he's in this land and he's fighting this evil force, this evil wizard who's bent on conquering his land, and he kills his family and his village, and he's more or less kind of like running from this huge horde that's trying to kill him. And he stumbles into this cave and he's transported into our realm, like our world. And it's like a big fish out of water type thing. And he befriends this homeless guy, and they become friends, and there's like a mutual respect, and sooner or later that world follows the berserker into our world. Like all those evil beings follow him here, and I don't want to give anything away, but it's a great story. I was really impressed. It was just an impulse kind of thing. I'm like, oh, Jeff Lemire, I'll pick that up. And it was really cool. It was a really fun read. I would totally recommend that. Berserker Unbound. I think Dark Horse put it out. So it's good stuff.
What about you, Corbin? I saw you holding a book.
Oh, I was holding a Legion of Superheroes, which, I mean, listen, I did not like number one. Exposition out the wazoo, just a whole bunch of needless, just talking. Bendis tried to put a lot of jokes in there that I did not. It's almost like I don't think he's very good at writing young adults or teens. It just didn't match. It felt corny and forced and was just weird. At the same time, I mean, I don't really have an outside recommendation. I've been very much within my pull list and out. So I haven't really wandered to look at other books that aren't necessarily like outside of that. I hope to this upcoming week or the next one. So maybe I'll have better recommendations for you there. I will say that was the first issue though. So I'm talking about Legion of Superheroes. And while it was rough, I mean, it is the first one. Maybe you can build off of that. It is Bendis we're talking about. And like we already discussed, him on DC is very much mostly missed. But is worth a try to check out. Aside from that, don't really have a whole bunch. Vaguely sad in the future for the Marvel 29.9 line, just in general, but that's well into the future, like next month.
All right. Well, guys, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this very first episode of Tales from the Spinner Rack. Again, this show is made up of a collection of members from different local pop culture and comic-based podcasts in the Phoenix area. Or just around Arizona too. But if you would like to be part of the panel and do reviews, drop us a line. If there's some books out there that we're not checking out that you think we need to be putting on our radar, definitely leave it in the comments and let us know. You can hit us up on social media at any one of our perspective shows and Twitter handles. We all pretty much communicate once another. We have like thousands of group chats that people just keep starting a new group chat for things, but
Quick, new one.
Yeah, yep. What are you gonna do? But guys, like I said, this is a collection of other podcasts. So make sure you guys check out and subscribe to Grizzle Geek on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Check out Corbin and I every Friday night, 7:30 p.m. on the Absolute Geek Podcast right here on YouTube. Check out Jay on Audio Ammunition. Are you guys on YouTube yet, or is it just downloaded?
No, we're just do it once a month. It's available on all the popular podcast channels.
There you go.
Audio Ammunition. Yep.
But you can catch Jay here probably almost every week right here on Tales from the Spinner Rack. So I feel like it was a productive first episode. We'll see where it goes from here. Some a little bit of growing pains, but it's nothing I don't think we can't overcome. Just about getting back in the motion and getting used to it. So guys, again, thank you for tuning in. We will see you guys next week. Remember to support your local comic shops. Keep them bagged and boarded. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
you.